I've had people comment on my paintings that have telephone poles in them or electricity poles, and they say, someday those may be gone. We're not going to need those anymore. It's not necessarily all a quest for authenticity. I think it's also what attracts me to these scenes. It's just the living in this world, wherever it is, if it's on the reservation or ranches here in Montana. But if we're painting what we see as beautiful in our life now, it's going to look historic, I guess, the minute after you painted it. Hey, Mark.
Oh, there he is. Never know what you're going to look like. Is he going to have a beard? Is he not going to have a beard?
Just less hair every time, except down here, I guess, compensating.
Yeah, that's funny. You actually do have less hair.
I don't think it's too funny, but glad you're having a good time with it.
Yeah, I got more hair than you now, I think. So, and the beard's a little gray too.
Yeah,
That could be just from living through this times that we're going through, the Corona times. That
right.
alone can make your hair gray. I swear. And Montana's having fun, right? Big spikes in coronavirus right now. Huh?
Yeah, must be because school's in. I don't know, but
Yeah, I was seeing that's like 400 or 500 a day or something crazy.
yeah, I think so. I think yesterday we had 700 plus.
Wow. You just don't
Yeah,
have that many people. How many people live in Montana?
just over 1 million.
Wow, that's got to be one of the highest rates in the country.
It could be. Yeah, I don't know. Our county doesn't have a whole lot, but we're one of the bigger populations. I mean, there's several cities larger than us. I think that's mostly where it's going on, and then Indian reservations.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to figure out what your computer is. Can you pick your computer? When I look at you, I see your eyes down low versus looking at me. There you go.
Oh, I should look
Oh,
look
hi,
at the camera.
hi there. Hi, Josh. Can you see
I'll
my
see.
face?
Yeah, I need to move you up so then maybe when I'm looking at you, it doesn't look like I don't know how to do that, but
I'm thinking, do I want to do it?
anyway, I'll look at the camera and not at you.
Oh yeah, it's nice when I get to see your eyes looking at me instead of like you're looking down on the ground. Hey, we're doing
Yeah.
it, right. So we're in the podcast right now.
Wait, start over.
No, too late. I love your studio. I've seen pictures, but this is the first time I've seen it live. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I see a
Well,
nice
thanks. Yeah.
canyon.
I've
Yeah,
sorry.
I see a nice canyon to shade painting. I think I know where it's going.
Yeah, that's for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, these are the two of the larger pieces I'm going to be doing for the show coming up.
Yeah, those are fantastic. And is that
Thanks.
behind your right shoulder? Is that Synergy? What is that? What is that?
Shiprock.
That is Shiprock. I can't tell yet. It's not done.
Shiprock. Yeah.
I was just there a couple days ago, and
Yeah.
there was so much smoke you could barely see it.
No kidding. From California?
Well, I think they said it was from Wyoming, is where they said it
Oh,
was.
really?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like ghost Shiprock. It was like, and then we don't have. There's no fires in northern Arizona, as far as I know. But yeah, they said something like Wyoming. So yeah, I'm
Oh,
working on that next book, and had to go and get some shots for what's going on in the res right now. What it feels like, and
oh, that's wild. So then how is that going in? They letting you in there and stuff, or is it
yeah,
all locked
yeah.
up or
No, it's open. You just got to wear your mask, and right now I don't think they have anything that is curfewed for Gallup or anything. I went through Gallup, and everyone was wearing their mask, which was good. But I talked to my buddy who owns the Totalina Trading Post, and he said they've only had 6 Belaganas in this year. So 6 white people in this year.
wow.
So
Wow.
people are afraid, I guess.
Right. Well, how's he doing? I meant Mark through you. So how's
Yeah.
Mark doing?
But they're doing some cool stuff like tomorrow, I think, or maybe it was today, that they do a giveaway of food. So
Oh,
through
cool.
his, it's called the Blessing Way. Um, it's a nonprofit that he owns, and so they were giving food away, which is fantastic. So I'm not sure it's exactly the food that we should be giving away.
Right.
You tell me he's giving
Yeah.
away the food that people wanted to eat,
Right. Right.
and so sometimes some of the dietary habits up at the res is not the greatest, unfortunately. So
Yeah. That was interesting. It was interesting when I was there. I saw that you said pickles and Kool-Aid was a thing, and that was
Yeah.
a big snack.
Yeah.
So I
And
didn't try it. I should have tried it.
pickles are great, actually.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we've been trying to get together to do a podcast for well, since March for sure. So
Pre-pandemic, before we knew there was such a thing as a pandemic coming.
yeah, I know. Well, I knew it was coming in February. I mean, I
Right, right.
were going on,
Didn't
but
know what it would look like or what it would feel like or
no,
how much it would affect us. And
right. Yeah, we were struggling in March. Do you come? Do you don't come? And every day was like a new version of is it going to happen? And then there's
right.
some
Then it
point.
became totally obvious and we're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
let's
like
scrap that.
I'm sitting down at night going, there's no way we can do this. There's just no way. I'm
Right.
going to bring Josh and risk him to have to come down here. And of course, at that time,
Yeah, family's gonna come and everything. We're looking.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This was our March show, but we still did great. We still sold most of your work. And
Yeah, you did awesome.
yeah, well, it's the art, great art sells.
Wow. It's a team. We're a team.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I think that there is that component of being a team. I feel that way. I do look at it as being a team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A family too. I mean, I want you to
Yeah.
do well. And I have a big responsibility because you've got kids that need to be fed and, housing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm one of the components that has to make that happen. And I feel that
Yeah.
pressure, actually, interestingly enough. I do feel that pressure that if I'm,
Yeah. Well, but and I feel that you feel that is that we're a family and that you want to take care of us and take care of your artists. And I appreciate that. That the galleries I'm in are like that. They, that it's I appreciate the galleries looking out for us, knowing that we have to keep going and that there is some responsibility. But then there's also some responsibility as the artist to make sure you have stuff to sell to keep you and your family going and your workers and so yeah, a team, total team. We need each other.
yeah, during that March, April, May period, especially when we'd sell a painting, for one of our artists, everybody in the gallery would like hoop and holler because it was like,
Yeah,
because we know we're helping you, right? We're helping
that's awesome.
that someone, yeah, we got one sold. Yes. Because
Yeah,
especially I think in March and April, we really didn't know what to expect.
yeah.
Still not.
Again, you didn't know. Yeah, you didn't know how it was going to be, how people are going to be spending money or not, and yeah.
Right. And so how are you doing, by the way?
Good. It's been there's been sales through the summer and then a couple of the museum shows and both those I sold half the work that I had and even on an up year that would be great. So
Yeah. We just sold
yeah,
another one of yours the other day. I haven't even told you about, but off thing.
awesome.
Yeah, we sold a nice painting the other day. So we're keeping them
Nice.
going.
Thank you.
we're,
Yeah.
we're keeping them going. So one of the things I always love to do on a podcast, especially with an artist, like I've represented you for how long would you say, 12 years maybe or something? I don't,
At least that. I don't know if it was 2006 or 7. Is that right?
yeah, that
That's
sounds about right. Yeah.
yeah.
2006 sounds about right. So I guess that's 14 years. Well, I know you were in your 30s, early 30s, and
Yeah.
full head of hair, no gray.
Right. No gray. Yeah.
You had that look of a wonderment in your eye. And
Yeah. Well, hopefully I still have that. I don't know, but
you're what, 43 now, 44?
46.
Oh yeah, it was a while ago. I lost a
Yeah.
couple of years. Jeez Louise, we did the Young Gun show and you guys with Glenn Dean and Logan Ajay,
Right.
you're all in your, early to mid 30s, I think, at that time.
Yeah, and I was always the oldest of the young guns, so I was like, I don't know if you can call me young. I mean, young relative to what? I don't know.
Well, at 46, you're kind of in your prime, right? I mean, to me, artists are in their prime between 45 and 65.
Oh, good. I'm glad I have 20 more years.
Yeah, I think so. I have a little desert scene of your painting, Soros, that's in my house that must have bought right when I first started showing you. And so that was 2006, maybe we'll say, maybe earlier actually. And
Yeah.
I look at it, I can see your progression as an artist.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that is the case, and hopefully that will always be the case. And I don't know. Yeah, progression, and maybe even it's just a sideways progression, different ideas and different thought processes, and exploring, always exploring, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I mean, none of your paintings are the same. They're always different.
I aim for that. I don't know if that's always the case. I mean, there's an idea that I want to explore more or think that I could do better or improve on from the past. But yeah, typically I am aiming at different things on each one.
Yeah, and when it comes through, I'll show you this. I happen to have one here. So, ta-da.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So for those of you who are only listening to it, what I put up is my new book, which is called The Candy Man. And the picture of this is a Josh Elliott painting, which is called The Blue Chair, which you can see the little blue chair in the thing. And you, again, go to YouTube, you can watch it. But it's this painting. This is what I love about Josh Elliott's paintings. I can write,
I want to hear it.
yeah, I can write an entire book that is influenced by a single painting.
Yeah, well, that just shows your creativity.
No, I mean, there's a story. If you look at it, I mean, and I have no doubt when you looked at that, I remember when we were there, actually, that area, but when you looked at that scene in life, it's, you could feel, you could see that there was something there and you captured it. And the most important thing, and I'm going to let you tell me because I might be wrong, but I assume is the title of the painting, The Blue Chair, is that little blue chair.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought that it brought some humanity to the scene. I mean, there was already there with the structures, but then you can picture someone sitting out there, maybe having coffee, smoking a cigarette, whatever, looking at the cliffs on the other side of this view and just enjoying the view. Or, that's kind of what I thought of. But there's, I leave it open for anyone to make up their own story. But I like those touches of humanity. I like these. I like uh, the homes in these beautiful places. Typically like the Navajo homes. We're all put in these everyday elements, and I just think it gives them humanity, but it also just shows that it's contemporary life is just as beautiful as anything historic, which seems to be kind of the way people go when they add a human element. But I have a friend, and you met my friend TJ. We were on that trip together in Canyon de Chelly, and I met him early on in my career, and he was painting. So he's been a big influence on me. He was painting the everyday stuff. He had dumpsters in his paintings, and so that's been a huge influence on me just to see, what he would say was the good old days are now, and I can't agree more. I think if we're painting what we see as beautiful in our life now, it's going to look historic. I guess the minute after you painted it, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, I took that little blue chair and I made an entire plot line around it. So
Yeah, can't wait to hear.
I
So
sent
you
the
you
book.
see you extrapolated something from it. Maybe it wasn't the guy having coffee and looking at the view.
No, but it
I
was
imagine if it's a murder mystery, it's not.
no, it's not, but it's a very important component in the book. And
Cool.
yeah, it was, in fact, the back cover, which I'll show again, YouTubers get to see it, but we took Pat Travers worked on this, and we took the chair, which is all we figured was destroyed over time and used it as the back part of the book. I considered calling it The Blue Chair, but it just didn't work. It wasn't right, but because it was so important. So, that to me is what art can be, right? Art
Right.
and I remember the painting when we had it, and when I had it in my gallery, and now I own it in my house. I was fortunate enough to get it later on, but
Right.
a painting that can cause somebody to work on a book for 9 months and have a feeling of what it was and that sense of time and place and how it could be important. To me, that's the greatest, that's the greatest painting of all. And there's a lot of wonderful Degas and Picassos and things that people I'm sure have done books on. I know they have. And so you fit right into that classification as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I
Me
did
and the guy. It's like,
yeah, and I did send you the book too. It's on the way. You've already
oh, awesome.
sent it
Yeah, wonderful.
for allowing me to use it for the cover and also allowing me to.
Oh, well, I'm honored to be on the cover, Mark. Thank you.
Oh, it's one of my favorite paintings, and so that's, to me, it's fun when I can, these books. A lot of times when I do them, it really is. I can already see a visual painting of what it should be, or who could do it or what could do it. You've done two covers for books as well.
Yeah. 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 Well, thank you.
The only two-timer.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Yeah.
I would have thought there was someone else, but
Yeah. No, well, it just has to be the right painting and the right thing. And
right.
you capture a lot of the essence of what I write about in the Southwest. And, you've been to Totolina, you've been to these areas, and so you get it.
Right. Yeah. We're going around some of the same spots, seeing some of the same things, and I'm painting the contemporary version of that, and you're writing about the same thing.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that is, to me, it sets you aside from your peers in a lot of ways, is that you really do focus on trying to capture that contemporary sense of what's going on today, that you're not putting in a Navajo rider with a blanket from the, 1890s. It's, a blue chair and an old basketball rim.
Right. Right. And it's more what I relate to, I guess. It was my brother-in-law is a musician and an amateur musician, but still he would write songs, and his mentor told him to write about what you know. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And although I don't know, I'm not Navajo, and I'm not a rancher. I paint a lot of ranches, but I paint them from a perspective of how I see them, which is typically from the road or from a distance. And I'm not typically don't include the people. Um, and hopefully they still feel full of life with being devoid of figures, but for the most part. But I guess I don't know the people, and I don't want to imply that I do know what it's like to be a rancher putting hay up and things like that. But I want to show their world in this world.
Yeah. Though you live in rural Montana and you know a lot of ranchers, and I'm sure you've thrown a bale or two over time. And, it's, you don't have to lift them to understand them. I've lifted them.
Right, right. I know. I don't know. And it's not necessarily all a quest for authenticity. I think it's also what attracts me to these scenes. It's just the living in this world, wherever it is, if it's on the reservation or ranches here in Montana. But we are a part of this world, and I think although maybe not everything humans do is beautiful, we are still beautiful.
The other thing that you really like to paint, I think you're probably as good a artist in this field as anyone that I know, is your rocks. You love those boulders and rocks. What is it with that?
I think it's just form and describing the plains, and I don't know if they're rocks up in the mountains. I like painting the lichen, and I just like painting the patterns in the rocks. But I appreciate you saying that. I don't know. I think I am attracted to rocks and ice and snow, and so
And
although
water,
you don't.
beautiful water too.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I don't know what that just started with. There's just so many layers to water, the rocks under the water, the reflections, the light on water. Um, I don't know. It's just something I'm drawn to, and I don't think as much as I painted even if I painted my whole life, I don't think I'll nail it. It's a infinite source of inspiration and curiosity and chasing down a great painting of water.
Yeah, I can imagine when you're driving places with your family, they're like, "Oh God, don't stop." There's a you'll be like, "Oh no, look at the rocks."
They're all used to it now. They don't. I think they know. Even if we're on vacation, then I do a little bit of work. Although now I typically leave my easel at home, just because I started saying years ago, artists need vacations too. I
Yeah.
don't know we need, but we like
No,
vacations
you
too.
do. I mean,
Yeah.
you do need to, you can't always be on task, I think. But I bet your mind still goes anytime you go by a place. You may not stop, but in your mind you're going, I need to stop and take a.
Oh yeah. I think it's impossible to turn off. I imagine it's the same for you. I mean, always a storyline or some plot line going on in your mind, and pretty tough to turn off.
I turned around twice on the trip. I got about a quarter of a mile down the road, said, no, I got to go back. I got to go back and take a photo of this. I'll
That's
regret.
funny how that goes in your mind, though. You're just like, oh, I can pass it up. And then it just gets more and more intense. You're like, all right, turn
Yep.
around or it's going to bug me the rest of the day. So,
Yeah, it will be, yeah, it'll bother me that I didn't take that moment. So I'm 10 minutes late, and I have no time frame anyway. And yeah, I turned around twice to get photos. I was like, my wife's
yeah,
about it. She's like, oh, good. If you want to do it. I was like, I gotta do this. Sorry about this.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. And just speaking of wives and being supportive, my wife is so supportive. Just like you're saying, like she's fine with me taking the time to do that, or like we're planning a trip next weekend to go take some care of some things at her mom's cabin. But then I say, well, maybe I should turn that into a painting trip a little bit on the other end. And she's like, go for it. So
Yeah, always a painting trip. So let's get back to where your roots are, because I don't know the full story, and I'd like to know the full story. I'm sure people
right.
listen to this with too. So you grew up in Montana, is that right?
Yeah, I was born in Great Falls and lived in Great Falls only until I was about 6 months old, and then my family moved to Billings, Montana, where my dad was an emergency room doctor.
Right.
He was in the emergency department in Great Falls as well, but then the opportunity took him to Billings. So I grew up in Billings until I was about 10, and my parents had divorced 2 years prior to that. And then so my
How
mom
was
moved
that?
us to,
Yeah, because
I'm sorry?
that had to be tough, right? Going through a divorce, you're 8.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was not fun. And I think maybe, when you hear this all the time, kids are resilient, but I don't really like that. I mean, they deal with what they have to deal with, right? And I think maybe later on it had more ramifications than it did when I was young, or they presented themselves later on in life anyway.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it was tough. And then especially splitting time between the two parents and figuring that out. But
And she
so
was
I
in
think parents did
Montana.
it.
She
I'm
stayed.
sorry.
She stayed in Montana at that point.
Well, so they divorced when I was 8, and then my younger brother and I were with my mom, and my older brother was with my dad. And my younger brother and I and my mom and her new husband moved to North Idaho when I was 10.
Mm.
Sandpoint, Idaho.
And so, did you grow up in? Would that be kind of where you did all your junior high, high school, and all that stuff in Idaho?
Yep, yep. Graduated high school from Sandpoint, and that was a nice place to grow up. There's a ski hill and a lake, and it's fairly rural. It's a small town, but yeah, it was a great playground. Didn't realize it, when you're in a small town growing up, you just say, I can't wait to get out of here. And then when I go back and visit, and you're like, why did I ever want to get out of here? It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I go back, I don't feel like I want to run back to my home I grew up, but I love the people that are there, but it's kind of flat.
Yeah.
Not a lot
Oh,
of,
yeah.
so yeah, it's eastern New Mexico and it's really, it's flat. There's nothing, there's nothing but a few scrawny elm trees here and there. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. But it would be interesting. You would find the area interesting. I think it's just long horizons, which I think is
Right.
why I'm so drawn to Maynard Dixon, and probably your work as well, because of those long horizons that you can see. I mean, there's nothing to break the horizon. And so
Right.
I
Right.
feel more comfortable when I'm in that situation versus just like Dixon didn't like the trees and mountains and being close in. I don't like that either so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take it all. I don't know. North Idaho is pretty closed in, but I think, first 10 years in Billings, there's big vistas and sandstone and, prickly pear cactus and yuccas. And I think that's where my affinity for the desert comes in because it was pretty much a desert there.
And so when you were in high or junior high, let's say, yeah, were you drawing and painting in grade school and junior high and that kind of thing at that time?
No, maybe a little bit in junior high, just, for class assignments and things like that. I think when I really started drawing was maybe it's funny, I took study hall instead of art. I could have had an art class, my senior year. Probably could have had it before then, but it just had no interest. It always seemed it's funny, it seemed like a throwaway class, so I take study hall instead, which is not a throwaway at all. I but then all I did is I had a sketchbook and I drew in my sketchbook all of study hall, and listened to my Walkman. And but they were mostly cartoons of skeletons and stuff like that.
Right. And
Cartoony.
was your dad making art at that point?
Let's see. Yeah, he must have been. He so he retired from medicine early at 45 to paint full time. And so our first house in Billings, when my parents were still married, they built the house and it was a beautiful setting, at the end of a coulee with sandstone cliffs on either side. And then I think maybe 3 years later, he built a studio onto it. So that's, even though he was still a doctor, he was serious enough about it to where he was painting watercolors at the time. And then my mom was doing the framing. She was chopping the frames and making the mats and framing them up. And then they'd send them to a gallery. So he was doing both for a while. And then I think transitioned from watercolors to oils and thought I should give this a go. And then when he decided to retire, he moved from Montana to Loveland, Colorado.
Mm. And he did or does wildlife. Was that, did he do a lot of wildlife?
Yep, mostly wildlife, but then a lot of landscape, started outdoor landscape painting. But I think it was mostly to inform his landscapes and his wildlife paintings. But I think he also did a lot of on-site paintings and just sold little 9x12s or plenty of 9x12s.
And did he want to go into art originally? I mean, he's a doctor. He ended up as a doctor, but in his heart, did that what he wanted to do, but kind of got pushed in a different direction?
I think, I don't know if he wanted to become an artist or if that, I think he was always artistic. My grandfather was artistic
He was an artist
and
too, right? Your grandfather?
amateur. He did some paintings, but he mostly his thing was magazine publishing and, illustrating for magazines. More, not full blown illustrations like Wyeth or anything like that, but more political cartoons. But he would do pitches for magazines. He pitched National Wildlife, he pitched Ranger Rick, he and a partner did. He pitched a version of Modern Maturity. So he would have these huge folios of his pitch, and then broken down and with drawings and things like that. And he actually, I think it was 1930s, was at University of Iowa, and Grant Wood was his instructor.
Wow.
He was the head of the art department there.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Did you know your grandfather at all?
I did, yeah, yeah.
Did you get to
Yeah,
talk?
and he was always doing something creative, and I maybe after he retired, maybe he painted a little more for fun after that. I remember a painting he did of my older brother, kind of crawling on our giant Newfoundland dog. And so that painting was a watercolor, hung in our house for a long time.
Hmm. And so your dad grew up around a very creative guy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if your father's father, your grandfather, was encouraging him to not go into art or to be a doctor. Do you know?
No, I think it's interesting. The story I hear from my dad is that so my grandmother she was really into stability. So I think my grandfather was a dreamer.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes they, like kind of butted heads on that. So my grandfather maybe secretly was encouraging my dad to become an artist. And my grandmother's like, no, you're not going to become an artist. So I think my grandmother was really Catholic. She wanted my dad to become a priest. My
Okay.
dad was in line. This is the story I hear anyway. He was in line to sign up to become a priest or go to, I don't know, preschool.
Right.
And he saw a girl he liked and he's looked at the line, looked at the girl and said, no, I'm out of here. So that's the story he tells anyway. I don't know if he ever, you know, if that girl ever became his girlfriend or not, but that made his decision for him. And then he signed up for medical school, and my grandmother was very pleased with that. And for years afterwards, they'd be in the line at the grocery store, and she says, "This is my son, the doctor."
Oh
So
yeah, there was some definite
really,
there for
really
sure.
like that. Yeah.
And did he start going? Did he become an artist after they passed away? You know?
No, they were still alive when he became an artist or went full time. I think it was, right at, I don't know. I don't know how long they were alive afterwards, but a decade probably. And I think maybe he just didn't care what his parents thought anymore, which I
Yeah.
think maybe we all get to that point a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah, it's true. But she wasn't saying, "Oh, this is my son, the artist, my grandson."
I think she still introduced him as the doctor.
I'm
So
sure she did. I have no
yeah,
doubt. I think my
yeah.
parents did the same thing. I don't think they said, "This is my son, the art dealer."
Yeah, my son, the
Yeah,
doctor, and he sells pictures time to time. I don't
yeah, they got more used to it after I started to have some success. I think they were and realized I wasn't gonna quit and go back to doctoring. They said, "Okay, yeah, well, all right, yeah,
know. Right.
the gallery."
Well, it's understandable. I don't know. You want your kids to be successful, and if it's not the path you took or the or path that you've seen others take, it'd be scary, and you'd say, I don't know, maybe that's a good decision, maybe not, but I
Well, your
don't know.
dad was painting by the time that you left high school, though, right? He was doing that at that time.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
And was he pro for you going into art?
yeah, absolutely. And he paid for college for all three of us boys on his art career, and he he encouraged that. I didn't have an idea. I don't know if I fell into it, but I just followed opportunities. I never thought I'm going to be an artist. I didn't have, I think from the beginning when people ask what I want to do, I always said marine biologist. And then a marine biologist in North Idaho, I don't know how that's going to work out so much. But then I went to University of, well, first I started out at Colorado State University and then to University of Idaho. And it turned out when I would look at the course catalog, I just saw the art classes. And so I'd have five of those and then, one core class or
Yeah.
something.
So you
I was
clearly,
pretty much a terrible student except for art.
yeah. But in art, you excelled and enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my professors were always encouraging to me, and I wasn't always doing realistic or landscape scenes. It was whatever assignment they had, I would just I would go for it, and it felt like I was using my creativity, and based on what the other kids were doing in the class, I was doing okay.
Yeah. And then you went to another college after that too. Didn't you go to three?
Yep, Montana State University to study film. I wanted to be a cinematographer.
And was that toward the end of at the end that you did that, or when did you go to Montana State?
Yeah, so I did only one semester at Colorado State and then I want to say 2 years at University of Idaho. And then I quit school to go learn to paint from my dad. And so I spent a year with my dad painting on location paintings in Rocky Mountain National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wasn't sure if that's what I was going to do. I just wanted to learn more about that. And so but then I decided I wanted to try for the film degree and I did a year at Montana State, but I was painting while I was there too, and that's where I got my first gallery representation. And and so that started to seem more appealing than here I could get a few supplies, go where I wanted, paint what I wanted, or I could become a cinematographer, be subject to someone else's idea, or beg for money to get a project off the ground, only to have it change it to their vision, which was maybe more commercially viable. And so all of those things I was taking into account and just thought this is more immediate and it's more my own voice. And I've always enjoyed spending time outdoors and visiting national parks. And so it seemed like a real natural fit. But even then, I didn't know if I could make a living doing it. It was just, I'll keep going until I can't, I guess.
Yeah, and the cinematography, you're going to have to probably leave Montana too, and you're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yep, yep, I thought that too. Yeah, I always used to joke that I'd have to live in Los Angeles, but now I have some buddies that live in Los Angeles, so I don't pick on it as much.
I don't see you in LA. I definitely don't
No,
see you in LA.
no, no, no. I like being, close to the land. I think that I would feel out of sorts in a city.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it would change you for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Got hair plugs right now, for one thing. You'd have to get those because
yeah. I know. Yeah, the noise. I know. But I like visiting cities, and it's really invigorating, I think, and the culture is amazing too. So I'd love to visit. Don't want to live there.
yeah. Have you ever done a city landscape, cityscapes?
No, unless you call Butte, Montana, a city.
I don't. I actually
No,
don't. Have you done Butte, Montana?
I have done a couple of Butte. Yeah.
I've got a little one of Chin Lee that you did in the distance that's in my house.
All right.
The one where I came
Yeah.
up on you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know if that's a city, that's more like a village. So,
Right. Right.
so you
Yeah.
graduate or you get through with school and you say, okay, I'm done with this. You got your first representation. What gallery was that? Do you remember?
Yeah. The Chaparral Fine Art in Bozeman, Montana,
And
and
how,
they're no longer. I'm sorry.
how did that happen? How did you do it? How did you get in with them?
Well, I just would go to the galleries downtown and check out work in my free time, and I saw, I just liked their style that the artists they represented, and so I'd been going out painting, and I asked my dad, I want to get in this gallery. What do you think I should do? He said, well, the paintings that you have, put them in frames and then bring them in. But I did, I don't know if he told me this or I just thought it might be better to ask if I could bring them in sometime. I don't think I brought them in. I didn't do the thing. The thing is, you're supposed to call a gallery, right, to make an appointment and set it up professionally. I think I came in and said, hey, I'm an artist. And they're like, yeah, we've heard that before. And I said, I have some paintings. Would you like to look at them? And they're in the car. And then they said, sure, we'll look at them. And then I set them on the floor. And as far as I remember, they said, yeah, we'll try and sell these. So it was on the spot that they said, let's try it. So
And at that time you're what, like 23, 24?
22.
22. And
Yeah.
so they took your work in, they obviously saw something, and you had some success.
Yeah, I think, I was selling paintings. I think, maybe I don't think anything was below $100, but maybe close. But yeah,
Hopefully
and then
you find those differently than Josh Elliott. Hopefully you had a different signature or different.
yeah, the signature was different, and I think you can tell that they were early work, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
think they were what I was doing at the time, and I it's funny how every place you go along, you're just you are where you are, and but it's I don't know, constantly not satisfied with what you're doing, but always aiming for higher. But
And do you think getting in that gallery and having some success really was the pivotal moment for you as far as going, this is what I need to do?
I think so. I mean, it showed me that I could sell work. It introduced me to other living, working artists. There was a lot of Montana artists. That's where I met TJ, my friend TJ Lined, and he still lives in Montana. And we went painting last week together. We're still good friends. And so I think that showed you could make a living because there were a lot of successful artists making a good living. They had a show called Masters in Montana, and that's the first time I met Ray and Peggy Kroll Roberts. They came up for that show, and Ray and Peggy were like the superstars of the show for sure. But yeah, and then I think maybe I'd showed the gallery for 2 years, and then I had a group show or a split show with another artist in Montana too. And so I think that started to build on itself and then started to get networking here in Montana. And someone suggested to do the Russell show. But to answer your question, I think that was the first thing that said, yes, I'm getting paid more to do this than any other job I've had before. So
And you enjoyed it.
absolutely. Yeah. I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed setting up paint trips with other artists and going out to picking a location on a map and say, let's go paint here for a week. I just thought it was, yeah, it felt normal to me.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, it was. It probably wasn't.
Yeah.
And you'd seen your dad do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you watched.
And that year that I was with him, that's what we did. We'd go up to Rocky Mountain National Park all the time or take a trip up to Poudre Canyon and yeah, so I knew how to do it that way, or he showed me, you
Right.
get your paint stuff, put it in the car and you go out. And then you learn things like when you're packing your paints and you set your easel behind the car, make sure it gets in the ar before you back out of the driveway.
That's funny. And why, have
Yeah.
you done that before?
Yeah, I've gone through some easels.
Ran over them or not got them?
Yeah. You hear the crunch, you're like, what was that?
Well, it is. It's a profession. You have to learn. There's a lot of stuff to learn, from mixing paint
Yeah.
to brushes to canvas to gesso to framing to get
Right.
be a businessman. You have to be a business guy or girl. I mean, whether you want
Right.
to or not, because you're going to have to either sell them yourself, which is usually hard and doesn't work out. TJ does it. He's managed to do that, but it's hard to focus, I think, just on painting if you're also trying to do all the other stuff that's required.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah. And gallery representation's always been the way I wanted to go. I knew that I never wanted to sell my own work, although I had stints of that at the Russell show. I still had galleries, but I would have an exhibit room there with my work.
yeah.
And it was exhausting. I don't know how you do it.
Let's say fun, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
retail's interesting. It's not for everybody. And,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it can be incredibly rewarding, just so fun. And when you work
Right.
with somebody or it's just, they're really into it. And then other times, it's not so fun. But I guess,
Right.
it's still, I always used to say my hardest day as a art dealer was like an easy, was like an easy day as a doctor. It's just so
Right.
much
Right.
easier, so much less stress. So
Right. Well, and you're making people happy. If you sell a painting, the buyer's happy and the artist is happy, or something you found and dug up and, or, a treasure you found somewhere, a blanket or a pot. And
yep.
I don't know. I think these objects bring joy to people. And
Oh
so
yeah, for sure.
in that way, makes it fun and it's important.
Yeah, in medicine, you would have somebody come back and, I was doing sports medicine and they'd be like, oh, my knee isn't better, what is all that stuff you used to
Right.
work and, art, they come back and like, I love that painting I got from you. Oh, it's fantastic. And it's gone up in price. Oh, it's just a great, you don't have really that negativity ever. And
Right.
not that we don't need doctors, we sure do. We need ones that are empathetic and care and want to do all that stuff. But yeah, it's a hard profession. As your father working ER could, I'm sure, has told you on more than one occasion, that's
Right.
hardest jobs there is, actually. It's very,
Right. Yeah. No, I think he was exhausted and he was sick of the paperwork. I think he liked dealing with people and helping people, but I don't know. The ins and outs of the industry were tough for him.
yeah, it's changing. It continues to change. So yeah,
Right.
not allowed to treat the patients. They don't, doctors don't even touch you anymore hardly. I mean, they don't put their hands on
Right.
you or listen to you. They just sit across the way, they write into a computer and, off you go. So
Right.
yeah, it's a different, it's challenging for sure. So after you work with your dad, you get with Chaparral, and then what's your next gallery that you get to from there?
Well, then, so I met my wife Allison at the University of Idaho, and then we dated long distance, while I was in Colorado learning with my dad, and while I was in Bozeman. But then she came to Bozeman. She did her student teaching in Billings. She's from Great Falls too. We were only a month apart in age, born in the same hospital in Great Falls, but didn't meet until we were 19 in
Yeah.
Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah. And she's a
Yeah.
musician, right?
Yep, yep. She's a violinist and now a music teacher and teaches private violin lessons and plays in the symphony here in Helena.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. So you guys got married fairly young, really, right?
Yep, 23.
Yeah, that's young, youngish.
Yep, yep. I think so. Yeah. So then after we got married, she was recruited to teach orchestra, middle school orchestra in Salem, Oregon. So we went out there and checked it out and said, "This looks good. Let's do this." And it was better than any prospects I had. Well, I could paint anywhere too. So I been painting in Oregon for a short while. Then I had my first show at Chaparral. I sent them some of the Oregon images as well as some Montana paintings. Um, but then I started looking for representation in Oregon, and I actually found two places, both in Portland, and they were a block away from each other. Which I don't know if I had feelers out for both at the same time. I don't remember how that happened, but then I got into both. One was they call it the what was it? The rental sales gallery in the Portland Art Museum.
Mhm.
So you could rent to own work, which in a way I thought was kind of nice because if there was something that was $5,000, which at that point I don't think I had anything 5,000, but you could rent it for your business, hang it on the wall, and then if you decided you wanted it, they applied past rent, and then you could pay monthly payments until you owned it, which I think is kind of a neat way to do to make art affordable because it's not always affordable. And then the other one was just a little storefront in an old historic building, and I went in there. I was always, whenever I'd go visit Portland, I always went to this gallery. They had Edgar Paynes and Maurice Bronze and
Oh, yeah, nice.
um, yeah, and Emil Carlson and just great work in there. And so I think he started to recognize me coming in and checking out the work. And I think galleries notice when it's an artist because they get up on the painting and they're looking at it. And
Oh, we can tell. You look
yeah,
at it from the side. That's the key. When you go to the side, You know, you might as well have a big thing on your back that says, "Kick me, I'm an artist," because you definitely are.
It's the equivalent of a drummer having drumsticks in his back
Yeah,
pocket. And like,
it
you're a
definitely
drummer? Oh yeah, how'd you know? So I don't know how the discussion came about, but I started talking about it, and he said, "Well, I'd like to see your work." And then he saw it and said, "I'd like to represent you," but I didn't even know that was a possibility because he didn't have any living artists
right.
in the gallery. And then shortly after I was in there, then he took on another living artist. His name's Eric Jacobson. At the time, he lived in Hood River, and we became good painting buddies and ran around Oregon painting.
And
So
was
that
that
was my next two galleries.
and was that successful in and they were in Portland, right? The gallery.
Yeah. So the rental sales gallery was fairly steady, and then I think I did at least one show a year. This other place is called the Sovereign Collection, and did at least one show a year for maybe 3 or 4 years with them.
And it's gone too. I don't know. The Sovereign.
Yep, I think so. I haven't been back in a long time, so I think it is gone.
And then, so where did you go from there? Because somehow you ended up back in Montana.
Yeah, so then we decided we wanted to move back to Montana. We'd had 6 years in Oregon, and it's very different from what we're used to. It's dry here, and you can see the blue sky.
Right.
And so Oregon was, and it was just too fast paced. Like we were saying, the Salem wasn't a huge city, but that whole I-5 corridor was just too much for us, So it was the population, hustle and bustle, and the weather. And we just love Montana. We would come back, spend most of the summers here. Allison's my wife's parents had a cabin, or do have a cabin on Echo Lake north of Big Fork, and so we'd spend the summers there, and so you'd be in Montana all summer, and we really liked it,
Yeah.
wanted to be here. So
Yeah. And that's the beauty of what you do. You could leave, and you did.
right, yeah. So we left. She didn't have a job lined up, but I think we just decided we were going to move anyway, and I think somewhere in between the decision to move and moving, she got a job teaching at Helena Middle School. So she taught music there for 1 year, and then we wanted to have a family, and everything just turned out beautifully that year. She had that job, she got pregnant. I made enough money as an artist for her to quit her job and stay home with our first daughter, Marin, and so that it was like it was meant to be.
And so, what was your next big gallery that you got? Do you remember that? What that question was?
Well, the one thing that really supplemented that my income was starting the Russell show and having that exhibit room and having paintings in the auction. And so I think 1 year I brought 40 paintings and sold over half of them. So,
Right.
and that was a big deal for me for sure. And then other shows, I think I was invited to the Settlers West miniature show somewhere in there, and maybe sending small paintings here and there to other invitational shows. And then so we moved to Montana in 2003, and then I started showing with you 2006. So I don't know, maybe you were the next one. Well,
Well,
and
Claggeray,
Claggeray too. Yeah.
right?
So maybe Claggeray was a year before that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I got your work, I was looking to see who else was out there that was really doing something special, right? Who was that next artist out there? And so, I was familiar with your work, but I just, wanted to ask some people, and
Right.
people kept saying your name, and the ones that really praised you the most were John and Terry Moyers, and they were like,
Yeah, those guys.
yeah, they just said, yeah, this guy's got it. He's got everything. He's got the talent. He's got the discipline. He's got the eye. And of course, they both have fantastic eyes. They're great painters, and they love
Absolutely.
art. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, I better call this guy. And you were still young at that point, so
Right. Yeah.
which
I
is
remember the call and I just couldn't believe it. But yeah, John and Terry have been so good to me. And I don't know what they saw in me necessarily. And my dad always saw that I had a knack for it. But if I look at my early work, I say, I don't know how you saw that. But I do think maybe with the Moyers that they could see I was a serious student. I listened to them when they gave advice. I've had some younger artists ask me for advice. And, there's been some good ones, but then some. I think that's what it is the work ethic or the willingness to listen to advice. I think So I was just a complete student with them, and I took it as an opportunity. And so, because they took me out painting several times, and even up to Canada a couple times to paint with them. And the way that came about was a friend of my dad, Dave Smith, who was a friend of Robert Lockheed, and Dave worked at Los Alamos Labs in New
I know Dave.
Mexico.
Dave also said your name, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that too. I remember you told me the story. It was that John and Terry said it, and then you talked to Dave, and then Dave said me too. But
Yeah.
they're basically the same three people, right? They are
They were
not the,
separated. They were separated at the time.
yeah, I know, but they all had this kind of thing going on with me at the same time. So then they were all, but between John and Terry and Dave, I mean, those and my dad, those are the and TJ. But anyway, Dave taught me so much. He would call me, once every couple of weeks and see how I was doing, ask what I was working on. He'd always say, "What's on the easel?" And then he'd say he would never give his own advice, but he'd always say, "Bob always said," referring to Robert Lockheed, and he would give some advice that Bob would tell, and it was always just wonderful advice. And he was such a great encourager. And I have this big library of books, and that was from Dave, like once a month, a big old box, the
Wow.
stack of books in there. And so that was as much of an education as anything, I had just looking through the art books and looking at artists I'd never heard of before in so many different styles too.
And you increased the number of different types of colors you used in your palette after being with working with the Moyer some?
Yeah, yeah, they'd have paint and they'd say, try out this color, or maybe try this. And until I don't know how many I had when I started with them, maybe seven. And then when I painted with them, then I had up to 18.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But and at first I didn't know how to handle them. I joke that my paintings look like a bag of Skittles spilled out on the table after that, because it just some of the colors are pretty intense. But now I like that. I like having the intense high tinting power colors. I can always gray it down if I want. But
And how many paints colors do you use generally in your palette, on your palette?
I don't actually know right now. It'd take me a while to count it out, but maybe 14 somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that. They think there's a million different colors you use, but it's really you have your palette, right? You have the
Right.
colors that
Yeah.
resonate with you, that you can work with, that you know how you can what they're going to do. I mean, Dixon,
Yeah.
the same kind of thing. I don't know how many colors he had, but I bet he didn't have more than 14.
Right. Right. And I still play around with it, and depending on where I'm going on, maybe I'll have a different color or bring an extra color or leave a color out. But yeah, still trying new colors too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what a recent one has been, but well, I've been playing with my cool reds. It used to be alizarin crimson, and now I've been using some magenta, and then there's another one, but I can't remember what it was. Or quinacridone rose is another one.
And you like to paint on boards too, a lot of times, right?
Yeah, yeah, almost exclusively, even on the larger ones. That I think the issue is they get heavy, but I think other than that, it's a really stable surface. I think
I like them better. I don't know why more people don't do that.
it's not traditional, and I think people are wary of something that's not traditional. But to me, it seems like it's going to hold up as well or better, I think, than anything. But I don't know. We'll
That's
see.
true. Dixon painted a lot of boards. He didn't, he used some canvas and the bigger ones, but you could take them, you could do them out in the field, right? And also, they don't get damaged as easily.
Right,
And if they do,
right,
they're easier to fix. You don't
right.
a hand
Well,
thing.
and I like them that they're less precious than a stretch canvas, and so I maybe more willing to take chances. And I don't know. I just think I like the hard surface too, and that they're portable. I'm not worried about poking a hole through them,
Right.
and I did a significant amount of research on to make sure they're archival, and I think that mine should last a long time.
Yeah, I would think so. And the other thing that you do, I think, is a little different than a lot of artists, is that you like nocturnes and you do nocturnes. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if it's unique. I see a lot of nocturnes out there, but I think I didn't start out doing them. I never painted one out with my dad before, and I don't know what the impetus was, other than maybe just being out and seeing how many shadows the moon cast on a particular night. And so I thought this is totally paintable and doable. And just like anything, I mean, I do look to other artists to see how they solve problems, but I think the more I go, the better it is to figure it out yourself. Uh, so you're not just a shadow of someone who did something before you. But
Mhm.
although we all do that, you know, but I do try to figure out the problems myself. So as far as the nocturnes, yeah, it's just exciting. It's a whole different palette. I use different colors for that, and I like the mystery of it, and I like that it's open for interpretation. Because if you're outside looking at moonlight, there's nothing you can put your finger on and say that's green, that's red. You know, that's it's just some form of gray that's cooler or warmer, or you know, more towards red or something like that. So I think it really does show that an artist's voice a little more when you see their nocturnes, I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most interesting things of our Canyon de Chelly trip that we took, watching you paint in a full moon, a nocturne. And for those people who haven't watched it, and I had never before, is you're literally outside with your easel set up and you're looking at the what's happening in the sky with no lights. And then you have a miner's hat of some type with a little light on the top of your head.
Yeah, a little headlamp, LED headlamp.
And then you go down. Well, as soon as you see what you see, then you flip it on and paint a little bit and then flip it off, right? Back and forth.
Yeah, so then yeah, study it, let your eyes adjust. So it takes a little more time for it to adjust, and then, yeah, turn it on and mix the color, and then, you know, kind of block out your light and look. And then, so it's not precise, but it's, I think, more accurate than taking a photo and trying to paint a nocturne from a photo for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and I remember seeing the finished product and the finished painting looked like what we had. You know, it was, in some respects, it was better. I mean,
Yeah, well, thank you, thank you. Yeah, that's fun. And you know, when I go on paint trips, I plan them around, or I tried to plan them around full moon so that I can get out and paint a nocturne or two.
yeah. And do you find they're receptive, the clients face are receptive to the nocturnes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you've sold all the ones I've sent
Yeah,
to
I have.
you.
Yeah, I do. I find people
You-
that find them very interesting. I like them.
yeah, yeah, I enjoy them too. I don't think I've done one in a while. Maybe I can't remember if I did one for that last show or not, but oh, I did one, yeah. But I don't know. It's just something different, something that adds to the variety. And I like we were talking about before, I aim for variety. Even if I'm painting a show, I want every painting to look different, you know, either in size, format, overall color scheme, or
Mhm.
subject matter. So it's fun to, a nocturne definitely helps with the variety.
Well, and occasionally I know you do some figurative work. Not often, but I have one of those. The one
Oh
that's,
yeah?
yeah, I do. I bought the Young Guns, when they did it at the Booth Museum, you had that,
Oh yeah.
the threesome there. I bought that one and it's in my house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I know that that's not your thing, but I will say that at some point, maybe when you're 57, you know, and think about those, because you really do have a knack with that. And
Well, thanks, Mark.
I really find it quite enchanting. I've looked at that painting, 1,000 times probably, and I'm just like, wonder why he doesn't do more of those. I mean, it's so good. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah, that's funny how that goes. I look at that with other artists or musicians you like. Why don't they make more songs like that? Or, you know, but I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel natural. I've considered it, and I have ideas of what I would paint if I painted figures, but I just still intrigued with the landscape, and that's what inspires me.
Yeah.
And it seems like even lately I've been going more pure landscape and less of the human element, although I still do that. So I don't know. I try not to, if I have um, a whim or a serious interest, either one, I'm going to go that direction, I think, and just try to trust my gut on that, and do what inspires me,
Yeah.
you know, and try not to think. I mean, it's tough to get other pressures or sources of, I guess, inspiration out of your head. You know, it's hard to get the market out of your head, but I try not to pay attention to that as much as I can, although I'm in the profession, so I need to be aware of it, but I don't want my work to be influenced by the market so much. And I think any artist that's inspired me in the past, I don't think their eye was on the market.
Yeah. You don't want to be pigeonholed.
No, no, or be chasing down what you think is the thing to do right now.
Right. Well, you see that in writing all the time, right? People write books. Oh, vampires are big, so they start writing. No, you're too late. For first of
Right,
all,
yeah.
that's already gone. You know, you have to come up with that original sense of voice and uniqueness, and then just like you said, I think trust it. And clearly,
Right. So you
on
never wanted to put adolescent wizards in your books?
not yet. I've definitely never chased the market on my books.
Right, yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I can see that.
Yeah, you just have to have your own unique voice. And I think probably that's one of the things that resonates with me so much about your work is that it does have that unique sense, that voice. You know, I know a Josh Elliott painting when I see it. I don't have to look and see the
Thanks.
signature. I can see it a mile away from the composition, from the colors, from, you know, the subject matter. You know, I saw one somewhere the other day. I was like, oh, that's a great painting. That's got to be a Josh Elliott. And it was like, yep, that's a Josh Elliott. And it was in, I don't know what it was. It was in
Thanks, Mark.
show that you had done maybe for one of these museum shows. By the way, did any of those, are we getting back anything from that one desert painting that I love so much? Or did it sell?
Yeah, I think you get the Death Valley one. Is that the one
Yeah.
you're talking about? Or
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably on its way to you now. I know that show's down now, and then the other one I'm not sure yet because it's up till mid-October. So,
That's such a great painting. So what we're
well,
talking
thanks.
about is a Death Valley painting that Josh did that I have my eye on that's coming our way. And I think personally, I think that may be your sweet zone, that Death Valley. You know, I don't know anybody who's doing what you're doing out of there.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to. I think I've only seen a handful of Death Valley paintings, but I'm trying not to look intentionally to see what other people are doing. But I think was it Swinnerton did a lot of Death Valley, maybe the dunes and the vegetation on the dunes, which I thought was pretty neat. But I was drawn to the other forms and still in the painting you're talking about is of the salt flats and
Yeah.
the hills
Yeah.
around it, which I think that was my first attempt at that, and I still have other ideas for that that I want to see if I can get closer to my original vision. But yeah, I don't know. I went to Death Valley on a spring break trip with my buddies in college, and we'd go down to southern Utah and ride bikes, and then we said, well, let's go to Las Vegas and Death Valley, and so we did that. And ever since then, I wanted to go back and got the opportunity to go there last year. I was just blown away. I just saw endless possibilities.
Yeah, you had a couple for our show in March too, which were just
Yeah.
insanely beautiful. There's something about the colors of the of that area and the whiteness and the pastels.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. The high key desert floor and then so
yeah,
many locations there and then beautiful forms. And then to go from so far below sea level to these huge mountains, it's just really dramatic. Dramatic in a different way. I don't know if most people would think it's dramatic. I think a lot of people would think it's a vast wasteland.
right. Well, that's the beauty of it, right? Is
Yeah.
because it is a vast wasteland, but
Yeah.
it still has life. It has little lizard prints and things. I mean, there's still things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dixon did a painting called Zabrinski Point. And
Right. Yeah.
look that one up if you haven't seen it. I sold it probably 30 years ago.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I saw that of his, and then I think I saw it after I was there, and then recognized the vantage point he painted from, and I painted at Zabriskie as well, but a different view than his.
yeah,
And there's still more from that particular viewpoint that I'd like to paint.
would you ever put in any in the like Palm Springs, those big turbine fans in a painting
The
of yours?
the what are they?
Those the big windmills that make energy.
Oh no, I didn't see those. Are they in Death Valley?
They're not in Death Valley, but they're in Palm Springs down in that area.
I don't know. I haven't seen those, but it's funny that you said that. I was just going through some reference the other day, and there's I guess you call it a wind farm up by
Yeah.
Great Falls. And so I had this photo and I thought of painting it, and it's a bleak winter scene, and then it's a hill and it's got three giant windmills with horses down at the base. And I just thought, man, that'd be a cool painting, because
Yeah,
it
I
just,
think they are interesting, right? I mean, they're an invasion of our environment, and they're going to be, our 22nd, it's the 21st century. That's what we have now.
right,
We don't own
right,
landscape, whether we have those, in 2028 8 or whatever, or 100 years from now, and they may all be in a different form or fashion. It may be one of those things that lasts for 500 years, or it might be something
Right.
that lasts for more likely 100 years. And people
Right.
look back, and go, oh my God, look at those things. What are those,
Right.
telegraph poles? No,
Right. Yeah.
wind farm.
Yeah.
That's how we used to get wind before.
Right. Yeah. No, and I just think it's just what I like with a lot of or what I'm interested in with a lot of the human element in my paintings is how we get along in this world too. And so that's just one other form of human ingenuity that we say, well, we can take the wind and turn it into power. So I think that's pretty cool. But on your point too, as far as I've had people comment on my paintings that have telephone poles in them or electricity poles, and they say,
Mhm.
someday those may be gone. We're not going to need those anymore.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
want.
I hadn't thought of it.
Yeah, no, you're documenting. You're a documentarian of this time, just
Yeah,
like Dixon
right.
was. He was out
Yeah,
painting mine shafts in 1940. In Randsburg and those kind of things that are just,
right.
you know, and which makes you a current uh, painter for the rest of the time frame. 100 years from now, your painting should still resonate in a different way than
Right.
others, I think.
Well, hopefully, I don't, I think about the painting and it going out the door and then going to someone's home, hopefully, but try not to think about legacy either or what people 100 years from now are going to think of them,
You don't
totally out of,
think about that at all?
I think maybe it crosses your mind. And when I look at art books, I think that's maybe a carrot dangled in front of artists that someday you can be an important artist or something like that. But I just think it's not up to me. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with the decisions I'm making or I don't know, can't will that into existence. So I shouldn't spend time thinking about it. But um, so I don't know. I think as far as inspiring other artists, I think it's important. I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, but I just think I have to keep my head down and focus on what I want to do. And I think that gets to be a distraction or a source of discontentment for me, you know, because I just think, oh man, I wish I were better when I think that way.
Yeah. Well, the good artists all feel that way, that they're not there yet, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that, as far as I've heard, when I talk to an artist that I really admire or respect, that's what they say. I'm not there yet.
Yep. Yeah, no. I
Are
was,
you kidding me? Wake up, man. Look at that thing.
and they'll say, yeah, well, I appreciate it, but I'm not there. Look at that guy. Look at this guy.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, and it
Yeah, and
is.
I think we see elements in other people's work that we don't maybe have as firm a grasp on, or how did they think of that? And so it's as much as comparisons are bad, it's really difficult to not compare yourself to other artists. I'm sure it's the same with writers. It's
I don't even try.
yeah, yeah,
You
good.
know,
Good for
True.
you.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because some writers I read and I go, no way I can ever write that. That's fantastic. I don't have that skill set. And I know I don't have that
yeah,
skill set. I just have to
yeah,
use that skill set that I have. So,
right.
and focus on those things that I'm good at and some things that people are brilliant, right? And
Yeah. And that's the best place to get to is to finally admit, like, yeah, I can't do that.
right,
And good for them for doing that. I'm blown away. That's awesome. I'm glad I got to see that.
right. Yeah, exactly. And not get discouraged or upset that you can't write it. You just have to do what you can do at the best you can. And somebody else will look at your writing or your paintings and going, oh my God, I wish I could write like that. You're like, well,
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, too, when you see something great, it also, not in a way of emulating, but it also inspires you to try harder. It inspires me to try harder and just say, yeah, I really want to make something, that is unique and or it just encourages me to go more towards my vision.
And when you go to a show like, let's say, Pre to West or one of these big art shows in a museum where there might be another 100 artists that are showing, do you go and really look at the work to I don't know if inspiration is the right word, but to at least get a pulse of the market, a pulse of what's possible?
I think so. I mean, there's a handful of artists. I mean, I look at all the art, but there's a handful that I go to right away and want to see what they're doing and yeah, get some inspiration. I don't know. I think the only way to pay attention to the market at those shows is you go around and see how your buddies have done and if they've sold. But and always hoping that they all did. But as far as the market, I don't know. I can't figure it out because I'll see some paintings, not at that show in particular, but places that sell, and you just have no idea why they sold. But it just comes down to your taste. I mean, there's paintings out there that were never to my taste, and then I get to go see them in person, and you see the work that went into it. It is very respectable, and then I eventually get to a point where I'm blown away at what they've done, even though it's not something I would ever hang on my walls. So I think I'm getting off your question here, but
No, that's right.
I,
You're
I, yeah, I guess I see what's possible. I typically leave there inspired, but also exhausted because it's more talking than I do in a year because I'm usually
right.
out or holed up in the studio. So, um, and it's fun to get to see your buddies. So mostly it is to see what your friends have done and celebrate what they've done, and be happy for the people who have sold or won awards, and just be grateful in one way. Be grateful for this market, this Western art market that we have. It just seems very healthy. There's avid collectors, that are really participating in it, and I just feel fortunate that we have this because I know that other places in the country don't, and other countries don't have this, quite like we do here.
Right. And I think there's pressure, whether you feel it or not. I mean, I feel it as a gallerist that, artists go, things are going more modern. How do I go that direction, whatever that may be? Even Dixon did that too. I mean, no doubt he had those same pressures and responded to some of it, with things like Cloud World and those kind of deals. So
Right.
it's hard, I think, as an artist not to go, maybe I should make that a little more cutting edge or something.
Right. And I think, just when we were talking about it before, in trying not to be influenced by other people's work, but I do think that there, even if it is not, chasing down the market, or going more modern, I do think that there is almost a collective sensibility that, and it goes that way with movies, and it goes that way with food, and it goes that way with books.
Yep.
And I don't think it's, even if it's not intentional with each person, artist or author or musician, there are paintings that I can look at from the 1970s, and you can identify it as the 1970s. And it's
Right.
funny to me when I think about that because they painted with a lot of ochres and things like that. And we were into ochre so much in the 70s, we had ochre refrigerators.
Right.
So I just think that there's something that it gets to be this collective trend, even if it's not anyone following one person, or without someone sending out the marching orders like go modern or go this direction. But
Right.
and maybe we are going more modern. I don't know. I think people are just attracted to graphic qualities, but I do think there's always going to be room for high realism too. And maybe I'm somewhere in between, and I feel like I've been there. I don't know. Maybe I'm influenced by the trends too. I don't know.
Yeah, I would put you as a tweener. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, I mean, it's not super tight.
tweener. Is that a tweenerism? Is that a
Yeah,
new style?
yeah, you're a tweener. Which is I'm drawn to that actually. Super hyper realism. I love to look at, but it's, I'm drawn more to, I think, a little more impressionistic. Just
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's too. I think what I started was looking at the Impressionists, not French Impressionists, but California Impressionists or
sure.
Russian Impressionism. And
Yeah, I mean, you look at a Armin Hansen rodeo scene from
yeah,
1930. God,
yeah,
like
yeah,
unbelievable. Well, and if you
yeah,
look at your rocks, and just like the one behind you, even though it may not be completely complete, but your rocks are modern. I mean, modernism. If you look at you, if I took a slice of one of your paintings, especially your rock paintings, especially them, and
yeah. This one looks fairly modern. Theirs, I mean, it's like,
yeah, and if I just showed you what you did with the colors and the light and the shades and everything, I mean, that's complete modern art. But it's one element of what you do. I see that in your work. I do personally.
oh, thanks. Yeah, I think one thing that I aim for and I always have is a strong design, and I am aiming at a simple picture, a one idea kind of thing, or not a whole bunch of ideas. I want, they are fairly graphic, I feel like, but
Yeah. Do you have a favorite painting or a couple of favorite paintings that you've done? I know it's hard to give that, but
yeah, I don't know. And that kind of changes. It's funny when they leave the easel, they're never my favorite. And then I look back in a couple of years and say, how did I do that? You know,
right.
but I don't know. There was one I did a larger version of one that you had at your gallery of White House ruins in Canyon de Chelly, and I think the one you had was a 1620, and I ended up doing it 32 by 40, and that was at Prix de West a couple of years ago, and I think that's one of my favorite paintings. But
And was that from our trip then when we were there? That you did it?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
When we
I think
got,
I was joking with you because we got there a little bit late and the
we
light
did.
wasn't hitting the White House ruins. And we got there late, probably it was my fault. And I was like, kept telling our guide, stop here, stop here.
Yeah, we were looking at
But
all
anyway,
the.
yeah, you were taking photos and then I painted it, but then I just painted the shadow a little lower. So it wasn't the light, just my painting.
Well,
So,
in some weird way, I liked it. Mine, I like that better because everyone paints it with it lit up, right, with the light.
right.
So it was kind of interesting to see that next level of when it had passed.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's such an iconic image anyway in Canyon de
yeah,
Chelly.
right. Yeah, it's tough to do those that have been done a million times before and put your own spin on it. But
Yeah. Well, you seem to do it. I mean, they become, your own thing for sure. Some of your Canyon de Chelly ones from the top, I think, are fantastic. The one that
oh,
looked
thanks, Mark.
book cover for the catalog you did was, one of those Tasuki Overlook, I think it was, and it was just
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
insanely beautiful. So
Thank you.
what do you tell the young artists that are thinking maybe I should do this? You got any advice for them?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, um, I feel like there's more avenues to become a professional artist now than ever. I mean, you hear about artists getting discovered off of social media and things like that. And so all these young artists are already, 10 steps ahead of me in that respect. But I think is I remember it too when I was a young artist, and you get some accomplishments under your belt. You start to think, I've got this handled, and so then that's been my experience with a couple of young artists that have come to the studio. I think they wanted to tell me what they've accomplished, and whether they like my work or respect my work or not. I've been doing this longer than they have, and so if they're asking for advice and I give it to them and then they just say yeah, yeah, but look at this, then you're not going to find a mentor that way. And I think a mentor is a really good way to be shown the ropes of how to become a professional artist, and you don't have to line up with them on everything, but I just think it's, I guess, be quiet and listen,
Yeah.
to people who have gone before you. So
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And
yeah,
and follow that passion, I guess, because it's a hard road. I mean, you'll tell them.
yeah, yeah. And don't get caught up by the market. And I don't know if it's just because it's my personality, but the self promotion is getting a little old too. And I know that it's become so normalized to do it on social media, and I think some people do it very tastefully, and it just seems natural for them. But in other ways, they're constantly saying, "Look at me." Uh, and then I'm just looking at it through a lens of someone who would want to mentor you. It's a turnoff. It's just like, well, you got this handled, you keep going, buddy. And rather than a little humility, I guess. And it's hard to look humble on social media. That's my opinion, but
Yeah. Well, and it's a different, I don't know what they teach in art schools these days, but it's the component of how they communicate, I guess, is
right.
through, Facebook and primarily Instagram. So
Well, it's funny. I don't do it that often, sometimes I have a fear that I'm going to be left behind because I'm not so up on it, but it just doesn't feel natural to me. And I just lean on my galleries a little more rather than me promoting my own work.
yeah, well, and that's, I think any good gallerist at this component in time, if they're not involved heavily in doing that, then they're not doing their job. So
Right. Yeah.
they have to have
No,
good.
and then I think galleries or advertising other people's products seems easier. I think. I don't know. It's obviously I have a hang up about it that I feel like I should be doing it more, but it just doesn't feel natural to me. And I don't like that attention on myself. So I think I do think that maybe if I were promoting someone else's work, I'd have an easier time with it and be glad to celebrate their stuff. But for me to say, look at what I did, just feels I just don't like it. It's not for me.
Good. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a picture right now so I can put it on social media the day that we run our podcast. So I'll do my job because you don't want to do it. You can retweet
Yeah.
it, reshow it, whatever. Anything else that you'd like to share? I know this is one of the things that's maybe not your top of your list to be doing as a podcast, but I think it's important for people to get to see and understand, where you came from and all that. But
Oh no, I enjoy it, and I listen to podcasts when I paint. I listen to a lot of your podcasts when I paint. So I think it's a great format, a great way to reach people, and a great thing to I don't know, hear other people's voices and opinions and and get into their world a little bit. So I enjoy it. I don't know if I have so much to add. I'm just grateful for you, Mark, and grateful for what you've done for me. And I am excited about this show coming up
yeah,
and just picking another great time for a show, right? You know, a
yeah,
week after the election. It's
yeah.
just
Last
like,
time we did a show basically when the lockdown happened, really
yeah,
right at the lockdown, and now we'll have one right after the election, or election won't be over because we'll still be into it, I'm sure, in
right.
mid-November. And but the funny thing is, it won't matter because you got great art. Great art always,
Well, thanks.
it always sells no matter what.
Well,
So,
and I just think if it doesn't sell right away anyway, I mean, I'm still doing what I do and
yeah,
I'm still, putting my heart into the paintings and making sure they're good. And so I just think even if it doesn't sell right away, then they're out there and you usually get them done anyway. So
yeah. Well, again, great artwork.
yeah,
It's to me, it's Christmas. Anytime I
yeah.
see one of your packages coming into my gallery, it's like, oh my God, what do we got? What do we got? Uh,
Thanks, Mark.
I don't even know how many of your paintings I have in my house now, but I have a lot. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you've been good to me too. You're one of my biggest collectors.
I love them. I mean, they're all in my bedroom.
Thanks.
I look at them every day, every night, multiple times a day. I'm still entranced with the paintings and like, oh my God, how did you do that? And
Thanks,
and that's
Mark.
good art, right? I mean, to me, that's art should promote some kind of emotional response, in my opinion. It can be a good response, it can be a negative response, but it should
Right,
evoke. And your paintings, definitely have that ability to do that to me, and not just me; it's other people too. So, and they
right.
can make him right up,
Well, and
right.
that's one thing I was gonna, as far as, if I think about the market or what I do, one way would be is painting that variety so that then hopefully people would want to have a house full of them because it's not the same thing over and over again, or say, oh, I haven't, seen him do this before, or just to add to the collection and the variety of the collection. I think um, maybe it's helpful for me. I think maybe it takes sometimes a little longer to get some traction if it's not a familiar image over and over again. But I also hope too that a lot of my work doesn't come up for resale because it's something that they specifically related to the location or I don't know, some sense other than this is what I've seen my neighbor have and I know it's collectible.
Right. Yeah. And we all know those artists out there that, oh, I have one of these. Which one you have? Oh, mine has three geese in it. Oh, you have three? I have two in mine. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we know who it
Yeah,
is, but and four yellow slickers instead of two yellow slickers.
right.
So, and your paintings definitely don't fall into that category, and they're always different. I have snow scenes, I have cactus scenes, I have desert scenes, I have all of the different things. And I think it's important for collectors who might be listening to this, who think, well, I already have two of his or two of hers. No, you can have as many as you want. If you find
That's right.
somebody that you love, some of the greatest collections have been built that way. Alan Stone, who was a gallerist in New York City, who represented Wayne Thiebaud, loved Wayne's work. He sold his work, but he loved his work. Well, his estate was appraised at over $1 billion when he passed away because he had collected Tebow. He didn't care about selling him. He loved the work. He sold it, but I have tons of Ed Mells. I have tons of Josh Elliott's. I have tons of Maynard Dixon's. If I find an artist I really love, why would I want to limit myself to one. Do I eat one steak and I've had a steak, I don't need another one? No, maybe I like steaks. I want a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So I see that sometimes people ask me that as collectors. Well, I'm like, no, you find somebody you really love, and you're not buying this as an investment. You're buying it because you love it and emotionally have a connection to it. Why, go for it.
Right.
you know?
Right. Well, hopefully I make it easier for them to own multiple of mine because it wouldn't be the same painting, just different size or different time of day or
That's right.
so. Yeah.
They're all different. They're all unique, and they're all places that you somehow had a connection to yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That I've gotten to know or yeah. And hopefully a unique take on a location that's been painted a lot of times or and some of them are, real places, but with modifications, switching foregrounds or changing this or changing that. But that's some of where the artistic license comes in, and hopefully it feels just as real or as a real place as the real place itself.
Do you have, I mean, because you paint Montana, you paint the desert. Is there a kind of how much do you do of each? Is it like 1/3, 2/3, or can you quantify it in those terms?
No, it all depends. Typically send you the most of my Southwest stuff, and then somewhere like Claggett Ray or Simpson Gallagher Gallery, I send the mountain paintings or the Montana or this area more, and it is more based on what I think a collector in that region would be looking for to hang in their house. So I think, as far as, what I paint is based on where it's going sometimes. But these museum shows that I do, I send a variety. I'll have a snow scene along with a Canyon de Chelly scene or something like that, just to
Mhm.
show my breadth. But I don't know. You've sold some snow paintings and some mountain paintings, so I think
Absolutely.
and I'd send you more of those if you want more. But
Yeah.
it seems like the desert's going well, and so
Well, I think there is some truth to regionality, that people do like that. But yeah, I've sold many snow paintings, and some of your best work, I think, sometimes are the ones with the water and the mountains and the cold and bleak feel of, Montana winter. I think they're
right, yeah. Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah,
great
and I
work.
think you probably have collectors that would be attracted to that too, because
Oh yeah.
they're leaving these other climates to come down to Tucson. But I think maybe when they're in Tucson, they don't want to think about snow.
Yeah, you might be.
That's what they're fleeing, right?
Yeah, no, they are fleeing that. You'll be coming down here at some point in time too. Once your kids are out of school, you're going to be coming down to Tucson for a couple months as well, or a few months
Yeah, yeah,
of the
yeah. We
rest.
love Tucson.
Tucson's great. Get
Yeah,
here quick while you can, while there's still some housing.
right. Yeah, no kidding.
It's really growing. It's going crazy. And again, part of it just, what's fires, floods, and all the other stuff. People want a safe environment that's warm in the winter, and Tucson definitely has it. So
Yeah,
come visit,
yeah,
folks. Don't
yeah,
stay too long.
yeah. We have the same in Montana, but you just have to promote the things that are dangerous. Like we have grizzly bears here. I don't know if you want to be around grizzly bears. You guys got Gila monsters and rattlesnakes. That's really dangerous, right? So
Yeah, well, as we know, Gila monsters have no danger as far as I'm concerned. So, have you ever seen one of those in real life, a Gila monster?
no, but I want to. I know I've seen photos you've taken, and I really want to. But what is that? Someone was telling me that the only person that's ever been bit by a Gila monster is a drunk person.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. Usually, those kind of bites are,
They're
yeah,
like, watch this.
yeah. No, they think they can, but because they don't look like they're fast, and in fact,
Right.
they're incredibly quick. They're super fast. So, they can
Yeah, just
look.
about all lizards are.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just don't want to piss them off. But yeah, you got to come
Yeah,
down.
and when
April, May is when they're out, and then now. So I'm going to start looking right about now. So they come out October, and do their
oh,
mating.
no kidding.
Yeah, they're really only out a couple months out of the year. The rest of the time they're in the burrows. They come and eat, and then they go down. It's too hot, right? So
Right.
they kind of do a summer hibernation, like rattlesnakes do the same thing. So if it's too hot, they don't come out. So I don't know what this has to do
Yeah.
with painting, but I know you and I both love lizards. So
Yeah, yeah, love lizards and snakes. Really love lizards. Yeah.
yeah, no, they're fantastic. Well, Josh, thank you for taking the time. I don't want to take money
Thank you, Mark.
because I see that painting. We need some more work, so we're still there. Well, how far away is the Canyon de Chelly? I can see it. You're getting pretty close along.
Yeah, it's pretty much finished. There's a couple tweaks. I mean, it's hard to see. It's kind of blown out in
Yeah.
this video, but
Yeah, you can't tell from
yeah,
there. I
no.
love the
You
image.
get the overall image though, maybe, or the overall concept of it. But
Yeah, well, I love the road to nowhere, the fence posts, and then in the background, I'll point like this, but in the background of the far wall is that to me that's a classic Josh Elliott sense of use of light, color. You know, there's 1,000 little different strokes of color in that thing. That's the thing.
yeah, well, thanks.
Great.
I was playing with the temperature. You could get the depth of that further canyon of the same rock, but the way the light is bouncing around in there, very different temperatures
Yeah,
and typical of me too to put the contemporary road in there and not just a narrow trail or something. And even the cottonwoods and some Russian olives, those you don't typically see those in the Canyon de Chelly
yeah.
paintings, even though they're there. But
Was that coming out of the canyon that day? Do you know that shot?
that was for my first trip, I think, down there. But I think we went past this when we were there as well. But I think I've done several of this location, you know, either closer to that distant cliff or I think, you know, that one canyon corridor is maybe right up against that cliff there.
Yeah. Well, today is, I don't know what it is, October 8th or 9th or something, but today is, you know, now's the time to be in the canyon.
Yeah, yeah,
It's definitely changing quickly. They were,
yeah.
yeah, next week will probably be top time. So just telling you in case you need to go up
Right.
to the res.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to go there every year, but I've only been there twice and both times in the fall. So I'd love to see it in the spring and
Yeah.
summer too. And
Actually,
winter.
winter is really interesting.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, go when it's just bloody, the coldest it can be, and a huge snowstorm has just come through. It's
Oh,
fantastic.
I'd love that. That'd be great. And then even the trees without the leaves, maybe get more views of the cliffs, things you hadn't seen before. So,
And there's no people, you know, nobody.
right, right.
So I've gone that like that when it's like that. I think it's as good as anything. All right, I'll
Yeah.
let you go. I'll let you go back to work. Thanks for
Yeah, we
chatting.
could talk forever. I appreciate it, Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah, this has
Josh
been fun.
Elliott here. Yep, we'll look for your work coming up. We'll have some work mid-November for a show that Josh is doing, and we'll be out on the web. And send me some photos of the things that are going on in the studio, and we'll make it for our video. And I'll give you a call later, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that painting that sold too.
Okay, great. Awesome, Mark. Thanks so much.
All
Take
right,
care.
Elliott.
See you.
All right, bye-bye. See you.
We need your support for the Medicine Man Gallery channel, so make sure to click the subscribe button and tap the little bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, which we do every morning on Wednesday and Friday. See you soon.